21. The pulverized ruins of the city of Gomorrah. Korean War veteran Ron Wyatt discovered an area next to the Dead Sea in 1989 that looked like destroyed buildings completely made of ash. In this area, one can see 90-degree angles, shapes that resemble ziggurats, buildings, and sphinxes. The Ebla tablets mention all 5 cities by name and even call them sin cities: Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Zoar. As well, on the east side of the Dead Sea, at 3 different sites, there are an estimated 1.5 million graves found. Clearly, there must have been large cities to accommodate the people. Buried in the graves was a very large variety of different fruits and grains, indicating that this area was once very fertile. Ron Wyatt found human skeletal remains which have been completely turned to ash. This matches the biblical account in Genesis. When you look at all 5 of these areas which were once cities, they are literally covered with millions of smelly brimstone balls which contain pure sulfur inside, shown above. These balls were burning with intense heat. Laboratory analysis shows that almost 96% sulfur inside. According to 2 Peter 2:6, the cities were turned to ashes. In this case, the intense heat reduced stones and metal as well as living things to ashes. There was thermal ionization occurring. This matches the biblical description that God rained brimstone, sulfur, down upon the cities of the plain. Number 22. The destroyed city of Sodom. The city of Sodom was located south of the city of Gomorrah. In the time of Abraham, it was an extremely fertile valley, which is surprising because now this valley area is now the Dead Sea and along its coast. Nurse anesthetist Ron Wyatt discovered an area next to the Dead Sea in 1989 that looked like man-made structures with 90-degree angles, brickwork, walls, and even what seemed like sphinxes and arched doorways. Researcher Ross Patterson showed evidence of a man-made brick wall in this area, demonstrating this area was once inhabited. On the other side of the Dead Sea were many hundreds of thousands of graves, proving that this area was once inhabited. The Ebla tablets mention the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. With the graves were found different fruits, vegetables, and herbs, showing that this area was extremely fertile, like the garden of the Lord. Number 23. Ruins of the ancient city of Zoar, where Lot and his daughters fled. Lot, the nephew of Abraham, lived in Sodom. When the angels left with Lot and his wife and 2 daughters, they were told not to look back, but to look ahead as they fled the evil city. After Lot had been there a short time, he decided to go and live in a cave and escape from the destroyed cities of the plain. He and his 2 daughters came to the city of Zoar, which is a very small city on the south end of the Dead Sea. Ross Patterson, a contract analyst and computer programmer from New Zealand, identified the ruins approximately 10 kilometers south of Sodom as being biblical Zoar, where Lot first fled with his daughters before going into the mountains. The remains have similar geology, as it was also destroyed by fire from burning sulfur, which is brimstone. Number 24. Yeroham Park, where Angel met Hagar and Ishmael in the desert. The lake of Yeroham was man-made, but is in a much older site which dates back thousands of years to the Nabatean people who lived in the area around the time of Jesus Christ. Tradition says that Hagar came here to the well of Yeroham and gave water to her dying son Ishmael so that he could become the father of the Arab people. The angel of the Lord met Hagar in this place and saved them from death. Number 25. Ancient Beersheba, where Abraham and Isaac lived. Beersheba was named after the 7 lambs that were given to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, by Abraham. It was in Beersheba where Abraham was told by God to offer his son Isaac as a sacrifice on Mount Moriah. Beersheba was often used as the southern end of Israel, and the term Dan to Beersheba was often used to describe the whole of Israel from north to south. Many years later, it was here that Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Esau lived. The ancient city of Beersheba, now known as Tel Beersheva, was excavated in 1970 by Professor Yohanan Aharoni and by Professor Zeev Herzog of Tel Aviv University. They uncovered a broken Canaanite altar which had 4 horns, a 4-roomed house typical of an Israelite dwelling of the 10th century. They also uncovered wells, one of which is believed to be the well that Abraham had dug, it now goes to a depth of 70 meters. Right next to the well is a tamarisk tree, reminding us of the tree that Abraham had once planted 4,000 years ago nearby. Number 26, the place where Abraham offered Isaac as a sacrifice. Abraham heard God speak to him while he was living in Beersheba to take his son Isaac and offer him as a burnt offering on Mount Moriah. Both Jewish and Islamic traditions state that Abraham took his son and offered him on the area known as the Temple Mount. This site was where Abraham offered Isaac as a sacrifice. Araunah the Jebusite threshed wheat, and where King Solomon's temple was built. King Solomon's temple existed at this site for about 400 years until the destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BC. Then the temple was rebuilt, and it was still being rebuilt and expanded upon in the 1st century at this site. For many Jews, it is the holiest site in Judaism, as according to many rabbinical traditions, it is Even HaShetiyah, the foundation stone for the universe itself. This site is at the heart of the conflict between Judaism's aspiration to rebuild the temple that was destroyed and Islam's desire to keep the shrine for Islam exclusively. Currently, Christians and Jews are generally not allowed into the Dome of the Rock, as it is a Muslim shrine that was built in 691 AD and is Islam's holiest site. Number 27. Tombs of Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, Leah, and Cave of Machpelah. The building over the caves was built by Herod the Great and the Jews over 2,000 years ago to mark the location of the patriarchs and matriarchs' graves and to serve as a place of prayer. The Herodian complex consists of 6 cenotaphs laid out symmetrically. However, their actual graves are located much farther down inside the secret cave complex. Muslim conquerors and occupiers built minarets atop the building, transformed it into a mosque, and forbade Jews and Christians to enter. This prohibition remained in effect for 700 years, during which time Jews were permitted only as far as the 7th step along the eastern wall of the building. When Hebron was liberated in June 1967, Jews and adherents of all faiths were again allowed to freely enter this holy site and worship. Today the building is partitioned. 80% is controlled by the Waqf Muslim Religious Trust, with only 20% accessible to Jews. Muslims have access to the entire building 10 days each year, while the Jews enjoy complete access on 10 other days. Number 28. Bethel, where Jacob had the dream of a heavenly ladder. The true location of the Bethel in the Bible continues to baffle biblical scholars to this day. However, Dr. Haggai Ben Artzi, a lecturer of philosophy and history at the Basic Jewish Studies Center at Bar Ilan and Yellin and Lifshitz College, believes that he has solved this problem. The location is the Maqam Sheikh Abdallah, an ancient Islamic holy place, which also has a Crusader chapel ruins plus Jewish tombs from the Second Temple period at the site. An oak tree standing there is over 1,000 years old, showing that this site was a holy site where the trees were not cut down but preserved. The convergence of the 3 faiths at this site gives a strong argument that this is most likely the site where Jacob encountered God and the ladder that reached up to heaven upon which angels ascended and descended. Number 29. The place where Jacob wrestled with God. Jacob was returning from Haran with his family and heard that his brother Esau was coming to meet him with 400 armed men. Afraid that his whole family would be massacred, he separated his family into 2 camps. Thus the area is known as Mahanaim, 2 camps. One camp was for the family of Leah and the other for the family of Rachel. Then on the fords of the Jabbok River, now called the Zarqa River in Jordan, where it is shallow enough to cross, is where he met the angel of the Lord. He named the place Peniel. Many years later, it was the place where Gideon tore down the tower and killed its male inhabitants. It was much later the place where Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, reigned in Israel. But he was a weak man and was taken by General Abner to Mahanaim, a well-fortified city, as the capital. Years later, it was the place where King David fled from Absalom when he rebelled against his father. Now Mahanaim is in ruins, yet Peniel, the place where Jacob wrestled with God, still exists to this day. Number 30. Succoth, where Jacob built a house after encountering God. In 1960, archaeologist Hank J. Franken of Leiden, Netherlands, began excavations which lasted until 1964 and found an inscription mentioning Balaam, son of Beor. He didn't conclude that this was the site of ancient Sukkoth, as he did not want to be swayed by religion. Yohanan Aharoni, Hebrew University of Jerusalem professor, however, believes that Tel Der Allah is the correct site for ancient Sukkoth. There are two different Sukkoths mentioned in the Old Testament. The first site is the place where Jacob built a house and booths for his livestock after meeting with Esau. The other Sukkoth is located in Egypt, where the Hebrews passed through on their Exodus journey. The first Sukkoth, in modern-day Tel Der Allah in Jordan, was inhabited by Jacob, then was given by inheritance to the tribe of Dan after Joshua's conquest of Canaan. Then in the time of the judges, the elders of Sukkoth refused to give bread to the Israelite army led by Gideon, who were pursuing the fleeing Midianites. In the same manner, the city of Penuel refused. Gideon returned a conqueror over the Midianites, and he tore down the tower of Penuel and killed the men of that city, and whipped the elders of Sukkoth in punishment for their refusal to help their brothers.